You can be my secondary if you can handle it, she announced at a party. So I revoked her key and her status. Now she's sick, robbed, and I genuinely don't care. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The bass from the speakers was a physical thing, thumping against my chest like a second heartbeat. I leaned against the kitchen counter, clutching a lukewarm beer I didn't really want, and tried to look like I was having a profoundly spiritual time. Chloe's friend, Maya, had described this party as a vibrational gathering of aligned souls. So far, it seemed to involve a lot of expensive vodka, someone burning Palo Santo so aggressively it made my eyes water, and a guy in a linen shirt explaining how his astrological chart made him bad at answering texts. My eyes found Chloe, as they always did. She was across the room, caught in a bubble of laughter with Jake. He said something, and she threw her head back, a gesture that was once so familiar to me, now felt like a performance for a new audience. Jake, the visionary digital nomad who supposedly funded his travels through dropshipping and energy work. He placed a hand on her arm, and she didn't shake it off. A memory, sharp and unwelcome, flashed behind my eyes. Me, on my knees under the sink in our apartment, wrestling with a stubborn U-bend. Chloe was holding a flashlight, complaining about the smell. It's just so gross, Alex. Can't we just call someone? I told her it was fine. I could handle it, saving us $200. When I finally twisted it free, spraying water everywhere, she'd laughed that real, unforced laugh of hers and called me her domestic hero. The smell of Drano and her pride felt more real than whatever this was. The laughter across the room peaked. Jake caught my eye over Chloe's shoulder. He didn't look away. He just offered a slow, smug smile that didn't reach his eyes before turning back to her. That's when Chloe picked up a spoon and started tapping it against her glass. Everyone, hey, everyone, listen up. The music was lowered. A dozen faces, flushed with alcohol and pseudo-spirituality, turned toward her. She beamed, pulling Jake to the center of the room, lacing her fingers with his. My stomach tightened into a cold, hard knot. Jake and I have had a profound awakening, she announced, her voice ringing with self-congratulation. We've been doing some deep, shared shadow work, and we've realized that traditional monogamy is such a cage for the soul. It's based on ownership, not love. It's about fear, not abundance. Polite, fascinated murmurs rippled through the crowd. They were eating it up. I just stood there, my beer forgotten, the chill from the bottle seeping into my numb fingers. She turned her gaze to me then, her expression a grotesque parody of compassion. So, Alex, baby, we're poly now. She said it like she was announcing we'd won a trip to Bali. Jake is my primary partner. We've just connected on this whole other spiritual level. Primary partner. The words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. I saw it then, the entire, pathetic script. The months of emotional distance, the whispered phone calls, the new interest in tantra and ethical non-monogamy. It was all just set dressing for this moment. Jake chimed in, his voice a lazy drawl. Yeah man, it's about compersion. You know, finding joy in your partner's joy. You should try it. Very freeing. The room was silent, all eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. Would I cry? Yell? Beg? That was the drama they were tuned in for. But a strange calm descended over me. The confusion burned away, leaving only a clear, cold certainty. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a public execution of our relationship, and I was being offered a front row seat to my own demotion. I pushed off from the counter. The movement was smooth, deliberate. I didn't look at any of them as I walked toward Chloe. I focused only on her, seeing the first flicker of uncertainty in her eyes as I approached. The smugness on Jake's face began to falter. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my keys. The familiar weight of them in my hand. The key to my car. The key to my parents' house. And the key to my apartment. The one on the lease I signed alone. The one I'd welcomed her into. I worked the apartment key off the ring. The metallic click echoed in the quiet room. I held it up, pinched between my thumb and forefinger. My voice, when I finally spoke, was low and flat. It didn't sound like mine. It was the voice of a man who had just seen the last thing he needed to see. This key, I said, my eyes locked on hers, comes with conditions you're no longer interested in. Like loyalty, respect, and not being a fucking joke. I didn't hand it to her. I leaned over and set it down on the table beside her, next to a half-eaten bowl of kale chips. An act of dismissal. You can get your things tomorrow. Between 9 and 11. I'll have Mike there. I finally turned to include Jake in my gaze. Both of you can come. After that, you won't need this. I turned to leave. My hand was on the doorknob when I paused. I looked back at the room full of stunned, aligned souls. Enjoy the rest of your enlightened party. I opened the door and stepped out into the cool, quiet night, closing it firmly on the noise behind me. The silence was absolute. The silence in Mike's car was a thick, heavy blanket. He didn't ask. He just drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, cutting through the city lights that blurred into meaningless streaks. My place, he finally said, his voice gruff. Couch is yours. Don't fucking argue. I didn't have the energy to argue. I just nodded, staring out the window. The numbness was a welcome anesthetic. It was better than the alternative. The searing, humiliating pain waiting just beneath the surface, the echo of her words. Primary. Secondary. If you can handle it. We got to his apartment. He tossed me a blanket and a pillow from a closet. You want to talk about it? I shook my head, my voice a dry rasp. Not yet. Okay. He clapped me on the shoulder. Okay, man. He went to his room. I stood in the middle of his living room, the blanket in my hands, utterly lost. The numbness began to recede, and the first wave of reality crashed over me. My home, the one I'd painted, the one with my books on the shelves, my coffee maker on the counter, was now occupied territory. It was contaminated. I didn't cry. I just sat on the edge of the couch, my head in my hands, and replayed the scene on a loop. Her smug smile, Jake's patronizing tone, the key on the table. Had I really done that? It felt like a scene from a movie someone else had written. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. At 5 a.m., with the first gray light of dawn seeping through the blinds, I picked up my phone. The instinct was primal, automatic. Check her social media. See if she posted anything. See if it was real. My thumb hovered over the icons. And a cold, clear thought cut through the fog of pain. No. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a test. This was a choice. Her choice. And she had made it in the most publicly cruel way possible. Giving her my attention, even my hatred, was just another form of engagement. Another form of being her secondary. So I didn't search for her name. I opened my settings. I went through every app, every platform, with the methodical detachment of a surgeon removing a tumor. Block Chloe Evans. Block Jake Miller. I didn't scroll through their profiles one last time. I didn't look at old photos. I just found their names and blocked them. Click. Click. It was the most empowering thing I'd done all night. Then I did the same for her number. Block contact. The finality of it was a relief. I was building a wall, and with every block, the noise from the other side grew quieter. When Mike emerged a few hours later, I was still on the couch, but I had a plan. I need to get my stuff, I said. Today, while they're probably still sleeping it off. Mike just nodded. I'll drive. We went at 1 p.m., a tactical decision to avoid the 9 a.m. window I declared. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want a conversation. I wanted extraction. We used my key. I still had the rest of them, and opened the door as quietly as possible. The apartment was a wreck. Empty wine glasses, a discarded linen shirt on the floor, Jake's, the lingering smell of that fucking Palo Santo. It felt alien, violated. I went straight to my bedroom. My closet was half empty, her side stripped bare. She'd already moved the most important things to Jake's, I guessed. Good. Faster. I grabbed a duffel bag from the top shelf and started filling it with clothes, my passport, my important documents from the desk drawer. I left anything that was a us thing. The throw blanket her mom had given us. The stupid novelty mugs we'd bought on a trip. I didn't want any of it. It was all just evidence of a case that was now closed. Mike stood guard in the living room, a silent sentinel. He picked up a book from the coffee table, one of my favorites. You want this? I glanced at it. It had been on my nightstand. She'd probably moved it to make room for one of Jake's crystal grids, or whatever. No, I said, my voice even. Leave it. It was just a book. I could buy another one. I wanted a new one that didn't have the ghost of my old life clinging to its pages. The whole process took 20 minutes. We didn't speak. We just moved, efficient and quiet. As I zipped up the duffel bag, my eyes fell on the table where I'd left the key last night. It was gone. I took a final look around. This had been my home. Now it was just a set for someone else's bad drama. I felt a twinge of something. Loss, maybe, but it was distant, like hearing an argument from another room. Let's go, I said to Mike. We left, closing the door on the emptiness. I didn't look back. The next few days were a blur of routine. I called my landlord, explained there'd been a breakup and that my ex would be moving out, and that I would be staying on alone. He was surprisingly cool about it. I went to work. I answered emails. I went to the gym with Mike and pushed weights until my muscles screamed and my mind went blessedly blank. I didn't talk about her. When Mike asked, I'd just say, I'm fine, and change the subject. I wasn't fine, but I was functional. The pain was there, a constant dull ache, but it was being slowly encased in layers of concrete. Every block number, every completed workout, every night I spent on Mike's couch without checking my phone was another layer. I was building a new foundation, and it was quiet, and it was lonely, and it was entirely my own. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of my own choices. And for now, that was enough. 2 weeks of radio silence. I'd moved back into the apartment after Mike, and I did a full exorcism with bleach and new bed sheets. It was mine again. The silence was my own. My phone buzzed. Mike. Mike, hey. You breathing? Me. Still breathing. Working. Mike, okay. Look, I'm only telling you this so you don't hear it from some idiot. Jake moved in. I stared at the text. I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger. It was like reading a news headline about a country I'd never visited. Me, figured. THX for the intel. Mike, that's it. THX for the intel. Me, what else is there? He didn't reply for a minute. Mike, fair enough. He's a mooch, by the way. Sarah's pissed. He borrowed her iPad for a meditation app and sold it. A month later, another report. This one came via a late-night call. Mike's voice was different. No longer cautious. It was grimly satisfied. Okay, he said. You need to hear this. It blew up. I put him on speaker, kept folding my laundry. Jake gave her chlamydia. I stopped folding. Not out of shock, but out of a sheer, morbid appreciation for the poetic justice. When she confronted him, he laughed. Said he was exploring a connection with some girl from his yoga class. His tertiary partner, he called her. Mike's impression of Jake's vapid tone was spot on. He said if Chloe was truly poly and enlightened, she wouldn't be so attached to outcomes or hung up on possessive biological dramas. Then he packed his bag and left. Took her TV and her vintage record player. I let out a long, slow breath. I could see it all perfectly. The dramatic confrontation. His weaponized spirituality. Her world dissolving into the very chaos she'd romanticized. Is she okay? The question was automatic, a reflex from a forgotten life. Physically? Probably. Otherwise, her life is a dumpster fire. The friend group is funleh, split. Half think she's a victim, the other half think she's a fool who got what was coming. Okay, I said. The word was final. It meant the subject is closed. That's it. Okay, Mike echoed, just as he had weeks before. Mike, I said, my voice calm. Her disaster is not my disaster. I'm hanging up now. I've got laundry to finish. The first text came from an unknown number that night. Unknown. Alex, please. I made a huge mistake. I deleted it. I didn't block the number. Indifference was a stronger message. The next day, another. Unknown. He used me. He was a monster. You were right about everything. I could almost hear the tears, the self-pity. She wasn't apologizing. She was recruiting me for her new role as the victim. Unknown. I'm so sick. I need you. The person I really connected with was always you. That one almost made me laugh. The sheer, audacious rewrite of history. I deleted it. The text stopped. Then, the voicemail. Her voice was raw, but now edged with something else. Entitlement. What? You're too good to talk to me now. After everything we had. I'm hurting here, Alex. The least you could do is answer. You're being so cruel. Just talk to me. There it was. The true colors. I wasn't a person. I was an emotional support animal that had failed to report for duty. I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of the bullet I'd dodged. The final gambit was Sarah. Her name flashed on my screen, and against my better judgment, I answered. Alex, she began, her voice strained with the weight of being the peacemaker. Hey, listen. I know it's complicated, but she's a mess. She learned her lesson. Can't you just be the bigger person and talk to her? She really needs you right now. I felt a surge of cold anger, not at Chloe, but at this entire toxic ecosystem that expected me to clean up a mess I didn't make. Sarah, I said, my tone flat and firm. Her needs are no longer my concern. I've moved on. Please don't call me again. I ended the call and finally blocked her number 2. The circle was complete. Months later, I was at a small gallery opening for a coworker. I was there with Laura, a woman from my kickboxing gym. She was sharp, funny, and had zero patience for drama. We were laughing about something, my hand resting lightly on the small of her back, when I felt a presence. I turned. Chloe. She looked diminished. The light she'd always carried seemed extinguished. Her eyes were pleading. Alex. Her voice was a trembling whisper. God, it's good to see you. I need to talk to you. I need to apologize. I was such an idiot. Jake was. I didn't let her finish. I offered a polite, distant smile, the kind you give a vague acquaintance. Chloe, it's good to see you're well. The lie was effortless. She flinched. Can we please just get a coffee? Talk. I miss us. There is no us to miss, I said, my voice calm. The mirror was held up. That was a cage, remember? You set us both free. Her face crumpled. Dawn, don't say that. You know that's not what I meant. I glanced at Laura, who was watching the exchange with cool, amused curiosity. She gave me a small, reassuring smile. I looked back at Chloe, at the wreckage of her choices. I hope you find what you're looking for, Chloe. Truly. The words weren't kind or cruel. They were a dismissal. But my life is full now. I started to turn away. You don't even care, do you? The question was a desperate, final shot. I paused. I looked back at her one last time, and I answered with the simple, unvarnished truth. It was the firmest, most definitive rejection I could ever give. No, I said. I don't. I turned my back on her for the last time and walked toward my new, upgraded life, leaving her alone in the echoing silence of my indifference. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.